Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Tuesday tip, where in this video I'm going to be talking about 5 different ways that you can make your BMX brakes better. So the way that we're going to go through this list is by the order of how much effort each thing on the list takes. So towards the beginning of the list, these are going to be the easiest things that you can do to improve your brakes. And then at the end of the list, it's a little bit more time intensive, but none of the things on the list should require you to have to go out and buy anything unless you just have no basic tools for working on your bike. But in this case, you should at least know a couple people who have the tools that you might need, and it's only a couple small things. So let's get right on into the list. Tip number 1, lube your brake cables. Brake cables can get dirt and other gunk into them, and putting lubrication into your brake cables can get that dirt out, clean them out, and lessen the friction of your entire cable going through a housing. Because when you think about it, a long steel cable going through a housing, and sometimes multiple cables going through housings, have a lot of opportunity for friction. And then when you add dirt and other junk to this mix, you have more opportunities for friction. So using some sort of lubrication, whether it's a bicycle lubricant, there's plenty of them out there and available, or something like motor oil, which I know a couple people have used in the past. This helps get that junk out of the cables, lessens the opportunities for friction, in turn having an effect on your braking and the pull of your brakes, which can be the easiest way to improve your brakes and make them feel better. Tip number 2, check your barrel adjusters. Barrel adjusters serve the purpose of a quick and easy adjustment to your brakes, and are often the easiest way to have an effect on your brakes, because a little adjustment on your barrel adjuster can go a long way in the feel of your brakes. A loose barrel adjuster can have an impact on how your brakes feel in making them not feel as solid, and changing the position of your brake pad, which also has a huge effect on the way that your brakes feel. So just make sure that everything is tight once you get the position of your brake pads and potentially your gyro in place by adjusting your barrel adjusters. Tip number 3 is to adjust your brake pad position. And now I know we just talked about barrel adjusters, but this is a different type of brake pad position in the actual alignment of your brake pads on the brake arm itself. There's a lot of adjustment to be had here, and if your brake pad gets off, it can make your entire setup feel completely terrible and can make your brakes not work at all. So this is something that you'll want to check. It goes 3rd on the list because it's a little bit more labor intensive, and it can take a little bit if you're as particular about your brake pad position as I am. I like to have my brake pads parallel to the rim so that the entire braking surface of the brake pad hits the rim at the exact same time on both brake pads. And having a brake pad that is off or angled in any way can make it closer to the rim on one side than it is on the other, and this has a huge impact on how your brakes feel, because it will feel like you're pulling further than you need to, and you'll feel the first brake pad hitting the rim, and then you'll have to pull further beyond that. Some people like that spongy feel, but everyone that I know that runs brakes likes them to hit at the exact same time. And brake pad adjustment can be an easily overlooked solution to your braking troubles. Tip number 4 is to true your back wheel. Having a wobbly back rim can have the exact same effect on your braking that having an off brake pad can have, only it could feel great in one spot and then terrible in another. So if this is the problem that you're having, chances are your wheel is just not true, and you'll need to true it up from side to side. And having a true back wheel eliminates the back wheel from the equation of what could be making your brakes not feel as good as they could. I know that truing a wheel is way more labor intensive than some of the things on this list, and that's why it's the 4th tip on our list. And that brings us to tip number 5, the last tip on our list. This is to adjust your brake spring tension. Brake spring tension has an enormous effect on the way that your brakes feel, because having tight brake springs makes for a harder brake pull, and having loose brake springs makes for an easy brake pull that also might not return as well. And it's also the most labor intensive thing on this list because it's so finicky in getting it exactly the way that you want to. It's not exactly straightforward because it's totally subjective in how your brakes feel, and how you like them is totally up to you, and it can take some trial and error. And depending upon your brake setup, for instance, if you have a straight cable or a double to single lower cable, you'll have some sort of straddle cable setup, which is affected by brake spring tension because both springs need to be relatively even in their tension so that they're returning and pulling about the same on the brake cables. This means that if one spring is tighter than the other, one side will be closer to the rim than the other, and this is something that can have an impact on the way that your brakes feel, the same way that having off adjustment in your barrel adjusters and having a brake pad that is off can affect your brakes. That's why they're higher on the list, because they're easier solutions to this problem. But if you go through everything else that I've talked about and you're still reaching this point, you may want to take a look at your brake spring tension. I have a video on how you adjust brake spring tension, and I explain these things in much greater detail. So if you're interested or you need to learn how to adjust your brakes, hit the link in the description below or in the info card on whichever corner of the screen that it's on right now. To bring things full circle here, brake spring tension also works together with the first thing on the list, lubricating your cables. If your cables are old, unlubricated, and have a ton of junk in them, making more friction and making the cables have a tougher time moving in the housings, you may have to increase your brake spring tension to be able to pull those cables back to return your brakes and get them ready for you to pull again. This isn't something that you necessarily want because it takes away some of the control that you have on how your brakes feel. If you have to have your brake spring tension pretty tight, that means that you won't be able to have the super easy brake pull that some people like. And if you've already followed everything on the list, or you already lubricate your cables, it's not something that you're going to have to worry about. But if you skipped right on by it, it's worth knowing, and it can help you out in the long run, because having your brake spring tension super tight all of the time and having to keep it that tight can shorten the life expectancy for the springs in your brakes, making you have to replace them sooner. With that being said, that's going to wrap up this video on 5 easy tips that you can use to make your BMX brakes better. And with that, I will leave you guys on a bonus tip that lubricating the pivot point of your brake lever will also make the brakes return and pull back easier, the same way that lubricating your cables will, because this is another point of friction, and it's just another place where dirt and other junk can build up, making your brakes not pull as smoothly or easily as they could. So that's going to wrap up this video. I'm going to end it here. I want to thank you guys for watching. If any of these tips help you, let me know in the comments down below. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button down below. I come out with tips and tricks videos just like this one every Tuesday, with BMX news videos on Fridays and other types of riding videos and streams throughout the week. Thank you guys again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.